You told sprint planning it was a 1 hour ticket. The AI wrote it in 90 seconds. Then you spent the next 2 days figuring out what the code actually did. I have been building software for over a decade. I have run teams through the shift to AI native development, and I have watched something strange happen to almost every one of them. The code got faster. The estimates did not get better. If anything, they got worse. Sprints that used to be boringly predictable started slipping in ways nobody could explain. And the reason is simple. We changed the single most expensive tool in the entire process, the part where a human types code, and then we kept running the exact same planning ceremony we used before. Same story points, same velocity charts, same stand-ups. Nobody sat down and asked whether any of it still measured anything real. So today, I want to walk through 6 specific ways AI coding assistants quietly broke your sprint estimates. Not in a dramatic way, in a slow, invisible, death by 1,000 cuts way that most teams still have not named. Let's start with the one you have almost certainly lived through this week. The 1 hour ticket that ate 2 days. This is the flagship symptom. You pick up a ticket that looks trivial, add a filter to an endpoint, you point it at Cursor or Copilot, and 40 seconds later, you have a full implementation sitting in front of you. It looks right. It compiles. And that is exactly where the trap springs shut, because writing the code was never the expensive part. The expensive part is understanding it, trusting it, and being willing to put your name on it in the pull request. The AI just handed you 200 lines you did not write, using a pattern you would not have chosen, touching 3 files you were not planning to touch. Now you have to read all of it, work out why it made those decisions, test the edge cases it quietly ignored, and untangle the one subtle bug it introduced with total confidence. The generation took 90 seconds. The comprehension took 2 days. And the estimate you gave in planning was based on the 90 seconds, because that is the part that felt like the work. It never was. Here is the second one, and it quietly poisons every dashboard you own. Your velocity chart is now fiction. Velocity was always a shaky metric, but it worked because it was consistent. The same team, estimating the same way over enough sprints, produced a number you could roughly plan around. AI blew that up. Half your team is now leaning hard on assistance and moving 3 times faster on the boilerplate. The other half barely touches the tools or uses them for a completely different class of work. So your story points, which are supposed to represent shared effort, now mean 5 totally different things depending on who picked up the ticket. A 5 for one engineer is genuinely a 5. A 5 for the person next to them is 40 minutes of prompting and a long lunch. When you average that into a team velocity and present it upstairs like it is a real number, you are not forecasting. You are doing astrology with a burn-down chart, and leadership is making quarterly commitments based on it. Number 3. And this one is the bottleneck nobody wants to look at. Code review did not get faster. It got slower and it got bigger. Think about what actually happened. Generation used to be the constraint. One engineer could only produce so much code in a day, so review was a manageable trickle. Now that same engineer can produce 4 times the output, and every line of it still has to be read and approved by a human. The bottleneck did not disappear. It just slid downstream and landed squarely on whoever does the reviewing, which is usually your most senior people. So you have this absurd situation where the team ships more pull requests than ever. The burn down looks incredible in the morning stand-up, and then everything grinds to a halt because there are 9 open PRs and 2 people qualified to review them properly. The work looks done. It is sitting in a queue, waiting for a human to verify that the machine did not confidently hallucinate an authentication bypass. Your estimate never accounted for that queue because the queue is new. This next one is more of a mindset thing, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You were always estimating the thinking, not the typing. For years, we all pretended the effort in a ticket was the coding. It was never the coding. It was the deciding. Which approach, which trade-offs, what breaks downstream, how this interacts with the legacy service nobody wants to touch. Typing was maybe 20% of a real ticket. AI came along and obliterated that 20%, and everyone acted like the whole job just got 5 times faster. It did not. You removed the easy part and left the hard part completely untouched. The thinking is still there. The architecture decisions are still there. The what does done even mean conversation is still there. All AI did was strip away the one component of the work that felt like progress, the satisfying part where you could see lines appearing. Now the ticket is pure judgment from start to finish, and judgment does not have a keyboard shortcut. If your estimates assume typing was the cost, every single one of them is now wrong. Moving on to the fifth one, and it is the most expensive line item nobody ever put on the board. Call it the senior tax. When a junior engineer leans on an AI assistant, they generate code far beyond their ability to evaluate it. That is not a criticism. It is just the nature of the tool. But it means the output now needs a senior to catch the things the junior does not yet know to look for. The subtle race condition. The pattern that works today and detonates at scale. The dependency that should never have been added. So your senior engineers, the people whose time is already the scarcest resource you have, are now spending their days reviewing a fire hose of plausible-looking code they did not write. That is time not spent on architecture, not spent on the genuinely hard problems, not spent mentoring in a way that actually sticks. It is a real cost. It is significant, and it appears absolutely nowhere in your sprint planning. You estimated the tickets. You never estimated the tax on the people cleaning up behind the tickets. And finally, the one that sits underneath all the others. Nobody recalibrated the process when the tools changed. This is the real failure, and it is a management failure, not a tooling one. We adopted assistants that fundamentally altered what a unit of work costs, and we changed nothing else. Same 2-week sprints. Same planning poker where people hold up cards for a story point scale calibrated in 2019. Same definition of done written before any of this existed. Same stand-up questions that assume the hard part is still getting the code written. We rewired the engine and never touched the dashboard. And so every ceremony now quietly lies to us. The velocity is inflated, the estimates are guesses dressed as data, and the retrospective never surfaces any of it because the retro format also predates the tools. Recalibrating is not hard, but it requires admitting the old numbers are dead. It means re-benchmarking what an estimate means now, moving review to the center of planning instead of treating it as an afterthought, and being honest that a faster keyboard did not make the thinking any faster. Here is the actual takeaway. AI did not break your estimates by making people worse. It broke them by making one specific part of the job almost free, while leaving the expensive parts exactly where they were. The typing got cheap. The thinking, the reviewing, and the deciding did not. And because our whole planning apparatus was secretly built around the cost of typing, all of it is now quietly miscalibrated. The teams that will win the next few years are not the ones with the best tools. Everyone has the same tools. They are the ones honest enough to admit the old measurements are dead and disciplined enough to build new ones. Your velocity chart is not sacred. Your story points are not physics. They were always just a shared agreement, and the thing you were agreeing about changed, so change the agreement. If your last 3 sprints suddenly make a lot more sense, you know what to do. Subscribe. And if you know a tech lead who is still defending their velocity chart, send this one their way.